This is Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews and conversations with interesting people, to me at least. In front of my microphone today, Mr. John Watts.
Hi,
Hello.
Trish.
Hi. How are you? You're. I just asked you this. You're a business owner.
Yes.
Have a lobbying firm.
Public affairs.
Public affairs.
Public affairs.
Please correct me. Yes. And also, you came in today. I really liked your idea of what this podcast should be called.
Yeah.
Getting close with Glose.
Yeah,
I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, Kingsley Kelly asked, where were you when we were coming up with a name for this podcast?
And I urge you to use it.
Okay, we'll think about it.
Send you a bill.
Well, yeah, you'll receive it in the mail,
Right.
the invoice.
Yes.
So I always like to start off these with, where are you from?
I was born and raised in Lebanon, Oregon. It's
Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Not
Yes,
Lebanon.
Absolutely not. That can get you in trouble.
I was going to ask if it'll get you in
Yes,
trouble in
on
Lebanon.
the Willamette River.
Okay.
Actually, the Santiam River.
Okay.
Yes.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until I was till I graduated from school. Well, I guess till I was about 19.
Okay.
I worked in Lebanon's a timber town, and timber was big, and so I had worked in a sawmill from when I was a junior until a year or two after high school.
Okay. What decade are we talking here?
Yeah, what decade? The late 1800s. I graduated from high school in 1967, so
Okay.
the late 60s, you know, through the Summer of Love and
Right.
all that good stuff.
What was your childhood like in Lebanon?
Family oriented. Gee whiz, you know, through the Father Knows Best era, that was a TV show that was on a long time
I'm aware.
ago. And Leave It to Beaver, that kind of stuff. No, it was really fun because, you know, it was a time that you, other than school, you had a lot of free time. You could go out and explore, and we lived close to the street I grew up on was a dead end, and there was a mill pond at the end of it. And so, as you might imagine, young men getting together on their bicycles and creating all kinds of fantasies about things, and having a pond. We built a raft on the pond, so during the summertime we could have a little bit of fun out there and stuff. So it was a good time.
Very Tom Sawyer.
It was a good time. Yes, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer.
I like it. And then when did you? You said you went to high school in Lebanon, graduated from there. What were you like in high school?
Oh boy, very shy.
Really?
Well, I'm still shy. I mean, down deep inside.
Deep.
You know.
Deep inside.
Deep inside. I wasn't, through grade school, I was straight A's. And up until about junior high, and then, you know, there became distractions, as any young man will have about that time in their life, probably.
Like female distractions?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Just asking.
And after that, high school, you know, the thing I look back on high school, didn't particularly care for it for a couple of reasons, because I didn't feel challenged. So consequently, those distractions and other distractions, sports and things like that, kind of became more important, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
And so I proudly graduated 352nd out of a class of 278. You know, not particularly worried about it at the time. There was a lot going on by the time I graduated from high school, not the least of which was the Vietnam War.
Right.
And there was the feeling, the perception that if you weren't real high on the intellectual scale, that that the service was going to be in front of you.
Exactly. What came after high school for you?
What came after high school was work. Got married young, so started a family pretty quickly. And that kept me from going in the service. Although my best friend in school was killed in Vietnam, which was a life changer for me. My outlook changed. I became deeply resentful, and that was kind of what was going on at that time.
I was just going to say, a tumultuous time in our country.
It really was. It really was. And my resentment led me to, long hair, defiant, kind of thing.
Rebellious.
Sure, sure. Music was very important, though. I think that's one of the things that was kind of a saving grace, that you could go to the music and the things that went along with that.
And
So-
music, specifically the Beatles, for
Oh
you.
my! During high school, oh yeah, that hit me really hard. When I was a freshman, we lived outside of town by that time on a small farm, and we had actually had a radio in our bus. And one day I can remember
The school bus, or you
in
had
the
a
school bus.
Okay.
Yeah, in the school bus, so we could listen to,
Right.
you know, the popular things were Elvis and you know, some of the music from the '50s and stuff. And one day we're almost to the top of the hill where we turned off, and this song by the Beatles came on. It was "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and there was a senior girl in the front of the bus, stood up, started screaming, and fainted dead away.
Really?
The bus driver had to pull the bus over. He didn't understand what was going on, and it was like, what in the world caused that?
Okay.
And then, you know, then it all started.
Explosion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had you ever heard that song before?
No, I had never
Okay.
heard of the Beatles before.
Okay.
I mean, it was brand new.
Sure.
You know.
What was it about the Beatles that you just connected to?
It was new. It was different. It was the style of music. You know, it wasn't the old-fashioned crooners. And I know there are some people who were, you know, just ahead of me that wouldn't agree with that. But this was new. This was mine. This was ours. You know. So.
And you were a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was 14 at the time.
Okay.
Very influenced by that kind of stuff.
And I mean, they were huge. They were huge during this part of your life, as far as popularity goes. And I heard that you were such a fan that when John Lennon died, you did what?
Well, John Lennon died on my birthday.
Really? Wow.
So I cried. I was stunned. This was a person who was a hero to me. You know, I mean, he was willing to stand up for things he believed in, and his music was absolutely incredible. And so, you know, it was that Monday night, and I was watching Monday Night Football, and I was absolutely stunned.
Sure. Well, and I mean, everything around it was so tragic, and he was so young, and.
Well, it was such a stupid thing to have a fan.
Yeah.
To have a fan assassinate the star just because, you know.
So what happened? But you did something specific after his death.
Well, after I guess after I got through the grief, I wrote a letter to Yoko Ono, and
Why? What was the reasoning behind that?
I just wanted to tell her I felt bad for her, you know, and I loved John Lennon. I mean, gee whiz, how old was I? 1980, so I was 32 years old.
Okay.
So maybe looking back, it seemed like kind of a crazy thing to do, but it was important that I shared that, you know, with her. And a number of months later, I actually got a reply.
Yeah. What'd she
from
say?
Her. It was a very generic reply, but it was handwritten on one of his drawings in a postcard, and it said, "Thank you very much," and you know.
Do you still have it?
Imagine. Yes, I do.
Of course you have it.
Yeah, I'm not going to get rid of something like that.
You know, it's funny you say that, like what compelled you to write that. I think when we have celebrities that we sort of hold way up here, most of us, if you're not a little crazy, we feel a little like we shouldn't kind of impose on their personal life. And it's like, well, what are they going to get out of me sending a letter?
Right.
But sometimes I think you do it because it's in your heart and you want
It was
to.
probably for me more than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. It's a good story.
Yeah. Hey.
When did you come to the Rogue Valley? When did you move down here?
Came down here in 1982
Okay.
With the Fred Meyer organization.
Okay.
When we opened the first store south of Eugene.
Clothing store.
No, the Fred Meyer.
The
North
Fred Meyer. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I had worked in a clothing store.
That's what I was
prior
getting.
To that.
Okay, so you
Yes.
worked. Where was the clothing store that you worked at?
I worked. Well, I worked at a number of them. It was a clothing chain up in Willamette Valley called The Blade. Ultimately.
I know. We won't go there. We won't go there at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But did you want to work in a clothing store? Were you a fan of clothes in general?
Oh my goodness, that was my dream.
Really?
At some point in time to work in a clothing store. I was a little nuts about clothes because, you know, when I grew up, we were poor, or at least I thought we were poor. And when I was in high school, a lot of the clothes that I wore were hand-me-downs from another church family. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted a pair of Levi Strauss 501s in the worst way, but I couldn't get a pair until I was out of school and on my own. And I thought, man, it'd be really cool to work in a clothing store. And it was.
Oh, yeah. I've worked in a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah.
So you did get that pair of Levi's?
I did.
Okay.
I did, and many, many more.
Of course. Do you
Yes.
find when I started buying my clothes as a teenager myself, I took
Right.
so much more care, like better care of
Oh,
them
absolutely.
because they
Oh,
were mine
absolutely.
and I purchased them.
Right. Folded
Right.
everything, and yes.
Because you're quite stylish. You actually modeled a little bit, I heard.
Well,
Come on.
I don't know who you're
Give it
getting
up.
your information from.
From someone who's very close to you.
There are some pictures that haven't become public of doing some advertising for the clothing store.
Okay.
Yes.
Still, you modeled.
I did.
You're a model.
I did. Yes, I guess I would have to admit to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and while we're on the
I
topic,
looked a lot thinner then, I'll tell you.
hey, you could model now. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Just kind of a headshot, maybe, huh?
Stop
Maybe
it.
I could be a hand model.
Stop. So along with, you are quite the dresser, but I also heard that you are quite the fan of shoes, and that you have shoes for all sorts of occasions.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you have like grocery shopping shoes,
pretty much.
gardening shoes. I don't know if you
True.
garden.
Yeah.
Going out to dinner
yeah.
shoes.
Right. Yeah.
How
Golf
many
shoes.
How many shoes?
Baseball shoes.
How many pairs are we talking here?
Now?
Yeah.
Right now? I don't know, 25, 30 pair, probably. That's not many.
No, actually, I was expecting more. I was expecting a higher number.
Well, I rotate them. You know,
After you wear
they
them for
don't
a while.
last forever.
Okay, they
right?
don't. They don't. They don't. What are your favorite pair of shoes right now?
Probably these.
Okay.
Yeah, they're comfortable and they're very, very lightweight.
What's the brand, if we can say? This is not an advertisement, but
Skechers.
okay. I wore these just for you today, by the way.
Okay.
These
Yeah.
are, I can show them on the camera.
You know, well.
So these are Adidas. These
Yes.
are Superstars.
Yes, they are. Those are tennis shoes. My wife had a pair similar to those. I think she had about 60,000 miles put on them.
Excellent. I
When
wore
they
these just for
finally
you
went
today, by the
away.
way.
Okay.
Because I heard you were a shoe guy.
Yeah.
And these
and
right
those
now
are nice.
are my favorite pair of shoes.
Are they?
Yes,
Why?
this is not an advertisement. Because they're cool. They remind me of the 80s.
Okay.
And
Are they comfortable, or are they?
I mean, they're comfortable, but
fashion statement, or
it's a little
are
bit
they,
of both. They're comfortable, but they're also a fashion
Okay, see,
statement.
that's important.
I think so.
Yes,
But
right.
I'm a shoe fan too. A shoe dog is what
Well,
Nike calls.
you know, growing up in the 50s, it was JCPenney tennis shoes during the summer, and then school shoes, and a pair of boots to work, to do chores and stuff,
Right.
and Sunday go to meeting shoes.
Yeah.
And so, 4 pair of shoes, man, that just didn't get
It's
it.
not enough. Did you just say Sunday go to meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Can you say that again?
Sunday go to meeting?
That was so Oregonian of you. Is that church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday night.
Yeah. So what really is that Baptist? Because that's what Baptists do.
No.
Okay.
No, it's Protestant, but
Okay.
I grew up in a Nazarene family.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about religion.
Oh, to all you Nazarenes out there.
When do you serve in the legislature?
I was elected in 1990, and I served until January 1, 1999.
What made you want to go into the legislature?
Well, I could give you some kind of a sappy answer, but truly, I was partners in a computer store, and we had some issues with workers' compensation, and it was a very, very complicated issue. My store was thrown into a high-risk pool for Safe Corporation.
Okay.
And probably the most dangerous thing we did in the store was unlock the door in the morning. I mean, really, this is a computer store. And so out of the 3 partners, it was my responsibility to learn about workers' comp and what was going on with it. I was in Rotary at the time, and I had lunch with a former state representative, and he was really blowing smoke up my skirts, you know, when he said, oh, you would be a great state representative.
You kind of puffed up a little bit?
Oh, man, are you kidding? It's like, really? Me? Wow, that's exciting. So I started thinking about all the wrong things about being powerful, you know, about being on TV, on KTVL, and all this kind of stuff. And I couldn't go to sleep. I just couldn't sleep at night. I'm thinking about all these things.
Okay.
Wow, this would really be cool. And but really the primary thing for me was the fact that I had a business. It was a new business. It was growing. You know, I can't really do this. But I talked to my family, and they encouraged me, so I threw my hat in the ring, and I was fortunate enough to win.
What was the spirit of the legislature in the late 80s, early 90s right then?
Well, you know, hindsight's always kind of a rosy picture of, oh, it was great and
memories.
I was fortunate because I was in the majority for all 4 years that I served, so I had opportunities. I earned a chairmanship in my first session, after my first session, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to serve on chairs of committees, which kind of gives you a little more opportunity to decide what legislation is going to go through in your committee and things of that nature.
Was the spirit different, though? Was there?
Oh, no question about it. It was more social.
Sure.
It was a lot more social, and that ended right at the end of my term, due to laws and things that were going on. The social part pretty much stopped, and that's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way it goes.
So how did you get into lobbying? And before we get into that, do you think lobbying is a nasty word?
Well, I think it creates perceptions in people's minds of things like that, but it's not. It's a good thing because it helps to educate legislators about their clients, but it also educates clients about the legislative process.
Okay. Yeah. But you went into lobbying for a while.
I did. I'd spent 8 years. I'd been successful in computers, but by the time I got out of the legislature, the computer clients I had gone on to other people, as you would expect. They needed somebody to do that. So it was kind of like, what am I going to do after I'm out? I was term limited, so I knew when it was going to end. And we had some really important transportation issues going on down here. So I was actually approached by some business people to continue advocating for transportation issues down here. So that made it a lot easier.
Right. And so that's when I met you. That was back sort of in 2002. I was a brand new reporter here.
Yes, you
My
were.
news director.
I remember that day.
Gordon Godfrey. Anytime I was having trouble getting anyone to talk to me on camera about anything legislatively, linked, he said, go talk to John Watt.
Right.
And after a while, you were just speed dial on my cell phone because I'm like, no one's talking to me. You want to talk to me? I know. Lucky you.
Man, I'm telling you. Yeah.
So lucky. So
I didn't even know that.
Well, now you do. This is why we have off script with Trish Glose. We learn new things about each other.
I see.
Okay.
Good.
Right. Speaking of learning new things, you are a fan of Mustangs.
Yes.
In fact, you've taken Mustang trips across the country.
Yes.
With other
Kathy and I, my wife did.
Your lovely wife, Kathy.
Yes.
And these are Mustang trips with other Mustang enthusiasts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The first one we did was in 2014.
Okay.
It was the 50th year of the Mustang. And we had some friends around here who had some Mustangs that were going to go across the country back to Charlotte, South Carolina. And we thought, wow, that'd be kind of fun. So we signed up for that, and we went with, well, there were 200 plus cars who went from the West Coast back there.
Wow.
But you can't go in a great big group. Law enforcement doesn't particularly care for that. So we had a group of 6 or 7 of us, cars, 6 or 7 Mustangs, and we made some new friends.
Sure.
Who are still great friends today. And in fact, our friends from San Francisco come up for our Mustang runs every year. We do short runs. I mean, we went up to Banff one year, and we're going up to Joseph. We're going to keep it in Oregon this year, and going up to Joseph and have a lot of fun.
And what is it about the Mustang that you just kind of go gaga over?
Oh man, it's a muscle car. Car from my youth, I guess, if you will. That's part of it. And the people we meet, I guess that was the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just driving.
Sure.
And one of the things, when we were planning a trip back to South Carolina, this was an organization called Mustangs Across America. And one of the things they encouraged you to do was to have a CB radio in your car.
Oh.
And I'm going like, right. Hey, breaker, Big Dan up there. And I said, oh, come on, I'm not going to do that. But we did it, and it made those 350, 400-mile days really fun because we could talk to the people in the other cars.
That is cool.
And you'll learn a lot about people, but it was a safety thing too. So
yeah.
Favorite?
Cool. Do you have a favorite year? A favorite as far as Mustangs go?
Well, I have a 2007 Mustang. So aside from the 64 to 66, the 2007, 2009s are styled more in that style of that old original Mustang. So I really like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Muscle cars.
Yes.
You have 3 daughters.
Yes, I do.
And I was talking to your lovely wife, Kathy, because we had this conversation.
This is where that information came from.
Maybe.
Well.
Maybe, yeah. Blame her. You've been married a few times. Kathy says she's the last, though.
Yes, and she means that. Yes, she does.
Do you think you finally got it right with her?
No question. No question about it. She is an incredible woman.
What is it about her? What was it about her when you first met her that you were just like, this is it? She's the one?
She was very efficient. She was beautiful. The thing, looking back on it, was really interesting. On our first date, I guess, if you will, she told her friends the next day that I was something you can't say. Can you say things like that on the podcast?
Well, go ahead and say it, and then if it's really...
Started with an A.
And did it end with a hole?
Yes,
okay.
It certainly did.
We can fill in the holes there.
Egotistical as a descriptive phrase of that particular word. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that until actually sometime later after we were living together.
So you were just like, hey. No? Did you do that?
Yeah, there was some ego involved.
Okay.
I mean, when you're an elected official in the legislature, there are people who treat you that way, and you kind of got to be careful sometimes. You think you might start believing that,
That's interesting you bring that up. My husband and I talk about this all the time. Politicians, celebrities, they have sort of groups of people who are always telling them that they're awesome, and they're amazing, and they're wonderful, and they're brilliant.
Right. Just they tell you all the time.
No, I have people in my life who keep me very grounded, thank goodness. But that's a problem, especially when those people start to believe I'm amazing.
And I think we've seen that just recently for people who think they're indestructible.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
And behave in a manner that's not necessarily acceptable to everyone. That did not happen to me. Kathy has kept me grounded.
I was just going to ask.
No question about that. But I got to tell you, and a lot of people won't believe this, but I really am shy inside. When I was able to go overcome it more when I was in office because I had a title. I could become someone.
Sure.
So I could put on that
mask.
On that mask and be that person. But at home and things like that, and I would prefer to be at home. I love home. It's a wonderful place to be, but just by the nature of what I do, we have to go out and meet famous people like you.
Please.
places.
Please. We're gonna wrap
I
up a
love
little
getting
bit,
close
but
to you.
getting close with
Close to
Glose.
Glose.
It's under review. That name is under
Okay.
review right now.
Okay.
I'll have my people contact your people.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be good.
We are wrapping up, but you were recently in the Mail Tribune for a guitar, a very special guitar. So tell everybody about this story. First of all, how'd you get the guitar, and then what happened to the guitar?
Right. Living Opportunities is a wonderful, wonderful organization
They're amazing.
here in our community, and we represent them at the Capitol in Salem. And so consequently, we go to their events and things. And one year at the Fernarcher event that they have, Dan Mish, who does the studio at Living Opportunities, had hand-painted a guitar, and it was a Yellow Submarine.
Yes.
So I approached him afterwards, and it sold for a good amount of money. I'm sure they were very, very happy with it. So I approached him afterwards, and I said, I will pay the same amount of money as that guitar if you will paint me a Sgt. Pepper, because I really, really like Sgt. Pepper. And so we negotiated for a while. He said he would. He ultimately did. Couple of weeks before the auction, he called me and he said, would it be all right with you if we put it up for auction, and then if it goes so high that you can't buy it, I'll make you another one. And so I reluctantly agreed to that. Once I started the bidding, I wasn't about to let anyone else have it. So I bought it and proudly displayed it in my office. And a couple of months later, a ne'er-do-well broke into my office and stole my guitar.
Stole that guitar.
Yes.
You were, you were devastated.
Oh my. And it was such a stupid thing, because it happened, the break-in happened on Saturday. The cops come in, we look around, there's nobody, I lock up and go home, okay, everything's fine. And then Monday morning, I was sitting at my desk, I was talking on the phone, and I just swung over and looked to where the guitar was, and it was gone. And man, I just absolutely
heart in your gut.
Oh, it was pretty quick that the heart in my gut took over for the anger that I displayed to the people in my office, for which I had to apologize. Yeah. And the good people next door at Four Daughters had the guy on tape.
Oh.
And so the tape was on all the TV stations.
Social media, I'm sure.
Social media, the paper. But I don't think anybody could have identified him.
Did you give up a little bit?
Totally. Called the insurance company. The insurance company wanted to have it appraised, but how do you appraise a one-of-a-kind thing?
I know.
So I did. I just chalked it up to experience, and then a couple of weeks ago on Monday morning, I had a call from the detective, and he said, we found your guitar, and it's in perfect shape. After he said he found my guitar, I was sure he was going to say in 9 pieces in a dumpster somewhere. Sure. But it was in great shape. I don't understand. I think it was karma. I invoked instant karma to the individual who took it. So I'm hoping that, they started having nosebleeds and boils pop out all over their body, and they finally said, I got to get rid of this
guitar. Did you do like the Fred Flintstone click your heels when you heard that news?
No, I tried that before, and my balance doesn't allow me to do things like that anymore.
Ended badly. All right, we're moving on to the final 3. Best advice you've ever been given?
From my pastor when I was in the 8th grade. He sat me down and told me, communication is the most important thing in your life. If you don't remember anything that I've taught you, just remember in your private life, in your public life, in your work life, if you don't have communication, you're going to have problems.
Wow, that is good advice. Very good advice.
I've never forgotten that.
Do you remember the pastor's name?
I do, Reverend Marble.
Nice. Well, thank you, Reverend Marble. That's
Wow.
excellent advice. If you ever moved away from here, the Rogue Valley, what would you miss the most about this place? What would bring you back to come visit or for good? What would you miss the most?
Well, first of all, I can't imagine what would ever take me away from here because I absolutely love it here. If I did, the people are wonderful. you know, things are different here in the Rogue Valley than they are out in the world. But the scenery, the being close to the coast and the mountains, and Portland and San Francisco, it's just a great place to be.
So you just come back just because?
I won't leave.
You won't leave. Okay.
No.
Well, there goes that question.
Yeah.
If you were ever given a last meal and a last drink, what would that be?
A last meal would be a ribeye steak.
I had one last night.
Yes, with shrimp and a nice Caesar salad. The last drink would probably be a gin and tonic.
Really?
Yes. Scary, huh? I mean, people are very distrustful of people who like gin and tonic.
I don't know about that. Gin and
Some
tonics
people are.
Gin and tonics are good with a lot of lime. Excellent. It's an excellent drink.
Yeah, and good friends.
Yes, always. Never drink alone.
That's right.
Well,
That's
you
right.
can, but just don't make it a habit.
Friends are probably one of the most important things in my life. I can't imagine life without friends.
I
So
second
thanks
that.
for being my friend.
Oh, anytime, buddy.
Okay.
Anytime. If you are listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. Check out the video portion of this podcast on ktvl.com. Just click on features, then off script. John Watts, you're easily one of my favorite people.
Well, thank you. As you're one of my favorite people.
Done. We should be in a club. Thank you so much for joining me today.